Welcome to another episode of BurnerCast, the only podcast where we talk about anything and everything hot air ballooning. Hi again, everybody. My name is Joey Strutz, and with me today are my two co-hosts, Brad Hosmer and McKenna Seacrest. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing pretty good. We're all packed up, hopefully going to fly in the morning. We're filming this a few weeks before Nationals, not to confuse anybody, but, I've been on the road the last couple of weeks, hung out with Joey Battle Creek a couple weeks back, went to North Carolina. I know those two have been busy doing whatever they do on the other side of the country, I guess, nowadays. But, it's been pretty solid. Back to action back here in BurnerCast.
And then I'm doing pretty good. I've been flying every morning and night, so I'm running on barely any sleep and having fun flying the big balloons and just doing pretty good.
Well, it's good to hear you guys are both doing well. This is our first episode we've actually filmed together in like 2 months. We filmed way ahead before our flying season started, so we wouldn't have to cancel flights and work around that. Filming from a special location here today. I'm at the Jackson Hot Air Jubilee. We're filming in the bowels of Steven Sitko's house right now, actually. But yeah, we're having a good time. It's been a good flying season, getting a lot done. So we have a super, super fun episode planned for you guys today. We're going to be talking about, as Brad mentioned, the BFA's 2021 U.S. National Championships. They're starting next week. So you're going to hear to us talk to a complete rookie of the event, as well as the defending champion. Today we have rookie and fierce competitor Blake Aldridge, as well as our 3-time U.S. National Champion and defending champion, Rhett Heartsill, joining us today on the show. Without further ado, we're going to start off with our defending champion, Rhett Heartsill. Please welcome him to the show. Welcome to the show, Rhett.
Hey, glad to be here. Good to see you guys.
It's great to have you on. We've wanted to have you on for an episode for a while, so it's great to finally have you on.
Sure, glad to be here.
So with all of our guests, we really like to start with, how they got their introduction into ballooning. A lot of us obviously know your dad was, very, very successful pilot. But for those of you who don't know, how did you really get your start and decide you wanted to become a pilot?
So, yeah, just like you said, growing up, crewing for dad, and, I guess basically starting in the womb, it was a family affair for years. And then probably my sophomore year of college was when I got my license eventually. And then started competition around 2009 or 8 or 9. So I had some fairly serious sports in high school, so kind of just focused on the crew part for him because we were going all around the world doing crewing and whatnot. So and I think that was a great base to learn from the crewing side first throughout all those years, and then finally getting into the competition side kind of mid-college. So yeah.
It's funny. I remember, because I'm originally from the Battle Creek, Michigan area. So I remember when you won your first championship in Battle Creek, your first event. And I'm like, okay, it's a Heartsill. He's probably going to do pretty darn good. And he did. And you've been quite successful since then. So you said you learned a lot from crewing. So how do you think really those skills came from crewing? And then you just kind of said, hey, like, this is what my dad did. This is what I need to do, and kind of hone those skills in. Because quite frankly, I think at this point, you're already I think you're better than your dad was at this point. It's kind of weird to think that, but I mean, you've got a good resume at this point.
Yeah. I had obviously the advantage of a fantastic mentor. And I think he started competition when he was 36 and I just turned 36. So I think I've got a little head start, or quite a huge head start, I would say. But I have to, give him most of the credit for that. Especially when we first started, we would hit Top Gun, Indianola, everything that had, light and variable winds, really fast winds. And basically he was like, we have to do this. Indianola, you're going to be fast winds, throwing a bunch of baggies, and basically put me through the ringer for the first 3 to 4 years. And that, Albuquerque flying, Indianola flying, totally different. But that was a great base and foundation to get a jump start, I would say.
So what made you want to get into competition? Was it just because your family did it?
I would say I was a pretty competitive tennis player throughout high school and whatnot, and track and, a couple other sports. But and we Heartsill seemed to have a little competitive edge to us. Dad was a football coach before he learned that there was competition ballooning. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to go do that." That sounds like a great idea, lots of fun. So, and watching Dad be successful, and some of the older guys, I won't name names, but in that generation, throughout those years of crewing was pretty much the incentive to try this out.
See, I feel like it's so hard. Like competition ballooning is just so addicting. Like I said, I grew up around Battle Creek, so I remember your brother Lucas flying teams as a kid and winning that at a young age. And like I said, and it's just like Joey, the same thing. I mean, we both have racers. It's just what we grew up around. So it's what we want to do in ballooning, as opposed to McKenna. Grew up around the ride side of it. So that's I think more the draw for each of us is, hey, it's what we grew up around, it's what we're comfortable with, and just competition. It's just such a thrill to do it in ballooning. Really is.
Yeah, and it's even last night we were at a little mixer deal with some friends, and ballooning came up, and it seems like I explain competition ballooning to outsiders on a weekly basis now, and it's not very well known, but it's just like any other sport. Whenever you get into that field and you're basically 30 seconds out and it looks like you're going to fly over the center of an X, you get that buck fever, we call it down here. Your heart starts racing, and that's kind of the adrenaline rush of the competition side. So yeah.
Cool. So we all know that you're coming into the event as the previous champion of U.S. Nationals in 2019. So do you want to tell us about that week of flying and how that happened?
Yeah, so Scotts Bluff is challenging. It's fast winds. We've obviously had some good success there, and let's see, 2019 going into the final flight that morning, Todd Isley was in the lead, and I can't remember if I believe I was second, and I can't remember if Dad was third or fourth. But it was one of those that, hey, he's 300 points ahead. We're gonna have to make something happen here to leapfrog him. And we had a good windy launch, extremely windy, and but got in the air. I think my whole mat board had fell to the bottom of the basket, but just like stuff happens in Indianola, once you get in the air, it's fine. But had a decent result on the field, and then there was a fly on. I had actually flown the fly on and redeclared, and ended up with a pretty good score, roughly 10 meters on a electronic mark fly on. So it seemed like Todd had done about the same, didn't really know. I think he got a little unlucky on his fly on, and Dad and I ended up first and second, it was pretty special because I guess my first nationals was 2010, and our goal from then on was to finish first and second at nationals. So it took us 9 years, but we accomplished it.
Cool. So what's your biggest advice to someone like getting into competition ballooning, or like a newer pilot in competition?
I mean, I would say, try to hook up with, an experienced group, whatnot, that's been flying competition, number one. Try to pick, quality events to go to. Like I said, Indianola is a fantastic event, number one, because it's roughly a week long. And number two, you're going to throw a lot of baggies flying to a lot of X's. I don't know if they're gonna take over the new Balloon Live app anytime soon, but I wouldn't say that's something to necessarily focus on right away, but because a younger pilot's going to be tech savvy anyways. Your main focus is being able to steer to an X in a field and kind of mastering that art first. And so, yeah, I would say fly different areas such as Albuquerque. You had kind of box winds, lots of steerage, and some place in the Midwest like Indianola or even
Seattle.
Seattle, Battle Creek, even Scottsbluff. You need to learn how to fly in fast winds. That's a safety feature, number one. You need a nice balance of light and variable flying versus fast winds and lots of targets.
So going back to like nationals when you won in 2019, so you've been kind of in both positions, I believe, where you've been ahead most of the week and kind of kept that momentum, and you've been coming from behind. What different strategies do you take on both approaches?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, it seems like being ahead most of the week, you get less sleep at night and a few more nerves. But, it kind of depends on, you look at the forecast and you say, hey, it looks like we're going to fly the next 3 days. And so we're going to fly every flight. If you're ahead, you want to be somewhat conservative, but not too conservative to where, you get, 20 meters and you end up at the bottom of the pack. If you're behind and you know that there's, limited flights to go, you need to be a little more aggressive, and we call it swing it out. So try to take the low winds in to the target to get right there on the square. So it's a balance. It's something we plan for. However, that morning before the flight, it seems like the plan goes away and all the craziness, but it seemed to work for us so far.
So, we talked a bit about the challenges of flying in Scottsbluff. It's not the easiest area. Are there any flying areas that you find similar?
Let's see. I would say Motegi, Japan we spent a lot of time over there, a lot of time for me crewing, and then we did a lot of events over there. It's really hilly, mountainy, if you want to call it. They kind of shifted the event to where most of the afternoon flights were in a flatter area with a lot more landing by the time I started. But it was pretty difficult there because, the first few years we were there, you could land on the side of a hill on a dirt road, and several people landed in the trees or the forest or whatever you want to call it. But Scottsbluff is, I would say, when we went to Worlds in Brazil, it was pretty difficult as well. Lots of dirt roads, lots of sugarcane fields, so lots of crops that weren't cut. Crops are fine if it's a hay field and it's cut, you can land there no problem. Scottsbluff was a little difficult. One of the main highways that went through the middle of the map, I haven't checked the latest map, but the last year we took that from a red road to a maybe a yellow road, or just no PZ at all, because up and down the road, lots of commercial businesses. It's very, very friendly for launching and landing. And so that helps quite a bit. But yeah, the first year in Scottsbluff, one of the flights, we almost had to fly to Wyoming to find, a landing site, but you'll eventually come upon it, kind of just like anywhere else.
It's kind of funny the places we put these big championships recently, like Scottsbluff, and I get it's a money game is where these places get. I understand that, but you get Scottsbluff, which is tough, like we've said. Shreveport, you hear the horror stories about that. I mean, that's just tough. And again, Battle Creek, you have the fort there. It's like just all the places. It's like all of them have their unique characteristics that challenge the heck out of you on a morning flight. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah. And it's not just one single place, you know, like you just said, every place has their difficulties, pluses and minuses. But at the end of the day, majority of the time, we have safe launches and landings and, you know, no incidents. And that's just part of ballooning, you know, we're at the mercy of the wind, and eventually you'll come upon a spot to land, and everybody else that's there is willing to help if you need to carry out and all that stuff. So it's a good deal.
So what kind of prep work goes into preparing for nationals?
Oh, let's see. We talk about ballooning every single day for the 90 days prior to, I think. And this year's a little unique because everybody's switching to this balloon live sensor, which is and the logger. So it's new across the world essentially. The FAI logger was pretty similar. It was just its own hardware device, and now we're using it as an app on a phone. So we've spent a lot of this summer just I guess personally we've recut our map boards. It's a different mount. We've switched laptops. We've just kind of reconfigured everything, because we have a laptop, a sensor, the Balloon Live app, our task sheet to worry about, you know, radios, altimeter. So we have a lot more devices that are in the balloon. And so we've kind of, and we do this every about 5 years, kind of, there's always something you can improve on, and something, hey, why don't we do this? Well, we should have thought of that 30 years ago. So this was the last couple of months has been pretty hectic on, you know, how do we manage all these devices? They all have to be charged. They all have to be, you know, maybe backup charger. If you wake up in the morning and nothing charged overnight in your hotel room. So we've gone through those exercises that's the main preparation this year, is just getting to where you're really comfortable with the new app, even if you're sitting at a desk, typing in coordinates on a task sheet, practicing that way, just to get as familiar with it as if you're texting on your phone to somebody, to where you can kind of do it blindly, in other words.
I've definitely noticed that you guys fly with a ton of like electronics. I was really surprised when a pilot friend was showing me everything he flies with for competition. I was like, I didn't realize you have like so much like different forms of technology. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's been some, you know, people have liked the logger, people haven't liked the logger. And I could be misquoting this, but I'm pretty certain that, you know, the U.S., you know, the Europeans have developed this FAI logger, but the U.S., we started with the Dakota 10s years ago at the NABA Nationals. And I'm pretty sure that we were the first ones that had even the electronic GPS tracker, even from the get-go. You know, I love observer events, but that's probably going to end up being a thing of the past. Especially this app on your phone is making it so accessible to every pilot in the world. And you can run events or practice fly into targets, and actually put your declarations in, drop your marker, all that on the fly. So I think it is the future. Everybody just, it's kind of one of those you just have to adapt to. But yeah, we've got, you know, we want to see, sometimes when you're flying on the competition map and you're not sure where the target is exactly, or want a visual and your crew's not there, you pull up an aerial on your phone or a tablet to say, oh, okay, it's next to that red barn at that intersection, or that White House or something like that. So So yeah, we do have lots of electronics on board. So the main thing, in my opinion, is to get as comfortable as you can with those electronics, the loggers, because the most important thing is flying the balloon. And not to be super distracted. And there's been several people, across the world that have gone to co-pilots to help out with that workload. And I'm not there yet. We've talked about it around and around again, but for me personally, I'm not there yet. But it could be going that direction.
Do you think that it's pretty easy to get distracted by flying with so much technology?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not disciplined, it is a distraction. At the end of the day, even though we have more devices now, I don't think, even when we just have one handheld GPS and all hard targets, people were still, getting tripped up, focusing on their GPS too much. So even though we have a computer, a laptop now that's basically has compiled that all into one, it's just like even flying airplanes, any distraction is, it could be there. And if you're too distracted, then it's just pilot error at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like for me, like I only look at a map at my phone, but sometimes just looking at that map for a couple seconds can be really distracting for me.
Sure. No, I agree. It's and we're all guilty of texting and driving at some point, or checking an email while you're driving, or I've seen people read books while they're driving. So it's all that is it's self-discipline is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge with this nationals is going to be one, the new technology with the sensors, and two, everyone being kind of rusty. Again, probably not a whole lot of pilots have experience with the sensor. I mean, they've been playing along with it, but it's a little different when it's at that national level where you got to have it be on your game, and you get, like you said, the fast winds. And I just think everyone being a little rusty, I think that's mainly going to be the biggest challenge. But like you said, you've been working at it. You guys have been working on your map boards. I know there's some issues within Shreveport, and hopefully those kinks have got worked out and everything. So that's the tough part for you guys too, is you came out swinging with it. To be honest, I mean, team nationals. I think you guys would rather have a nice little whether in a Battle Creek to get your feet wet instead of a national championship per se.
Yeah. I think the officials and the pilots were on overload, not just much less the rules of team nationals and everybody getting back familiar with it, and then you throw the new logger on top of that. It was stressful for both parties, and I think it was kind of maybe it was a blessing that we didn't fly every flight, because it would have people may have quit on both sides. But we had a lot of briefings and meetings discussing the rules, discussing the logger. So I think it kind of whet everybody's appetite, that hey, this is what it's going to, and team nationals is going to be really fun. And I think everybody's looking forward to it next year.
So how much do you normally communicate with, pilots that you're planning to team with, such as your dad or, other friends of yours that you're trying to find launch sites with?
So like during a competition, or just before, or just outside of ballooning?
Like during a competition.
So we do the briefing, and we pretty much kind of either text each other or somehow say, hey, let's go meet at target 105 and do a pie ball. So we get out there, do the first pie ball, and then try to hopefully make a decision off that first pie ball to a final launch spot bearing to the first target. And then we're in the air, and we try to keep the radio chatter to a minimum. So we, because we probably got 3 to 6 people on our channel, just pilots and with the crews and whatnot. So we have a pretty good system on, not overloading the radio or talking whatnot. And we kind of, at this point, know what's expected of if somebody's out in front or, without somebody if I'm out in front, I just dropped on the target without even them asking me like, hey, did you like where you were? What was your track? I kind of relay that back automatically. So we think we got a good system.
Well, I think the thing that helps with you guys is, again, it's mainly your dad and sometimes the Havens and occasionally Johnny. You guys fly most events all together. It's, again, you're doing Indianola together. You're doing the Battle Creeks together. It's, again, you kind of use those, I believe, as your prep work to make sure all the bells and whistles are tuned together. And then when nationals come, it's like, hey, we know where we want to be. We know we want to be communicating at this point and that point and where we want to be and kind of set your points. So, I mean, y'all get the system down. I believe that for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just comes down to efficiency. So we try to, if it's like I said, with our map board and all these new devices, if it's 60 seconds, that 1 minute's not going to make or break it most of the time. But if we can shave off a minute here or a minute there of getting in the air, or find the right launch site. Every pilot out there has has flown over the target, but it's been closed for 2 minutes at some point. So, every second counts. So we're constantly trying to fine tune that preparation, or that morning or afternoon preparation to find a launch site quickly that is a quality site to make all the targets and get in the air fast.
So as we've kind of been discussing this whole episode, there's a lot that goes into nationals compared to your everyday event. As you may have seen already, we have Blake Aldridge on in a little bit to talk about, what he's going to expect as a rookie. What advice would you have for him as a rookie?
So I'm trying to think back to my rookie year. There's always a ton of pressure. I would say that it's the basics. The rule of thumb is, you always have to launch in a spot you can see on a pie ball the direction, your 2 directions to be able to make all task. You don't want to get rushed and launch in a spot that either you're going to have to hug the tree line to make it all the way, or you're going to have to immediately blast shoot up to 3,000 to 4,000 feet to get the turn to make it. We typically like to rely on the higher winds because they're more stable in our opinion. But I would just focus on, number one, launch site is key. You have to launch in the right spot.
Very good.
And he can follow us in, but in Longview, he was always first in the air, so he doesn't need to follow us. He did well enough.
See, that's the thing. When he was in Battle Creek, he was with the team we were working with. I was impressed. I mean, just of his mindset of, how did all the points. And again, like you said, he's technologically savvy, so he's kind of got that advantage. But I think he'll do pretty good. He's got a good mentor in Dr. Bussey, and he's got a good head on his shoulders. So we expect big things out of him as a friend of the show.
Yeah. And I think, we have a lot of great rookies this year. So it's good. It's great to see that. And, Scotts Bluff is a great area to break it in. So I'm excited to see this year's event.
So, besides yourself, who do you see taking home the national championship this year?
Ooh, that's tough. I always have to root for my dad, number one. Him and Nick, I guess, are tied. second to Bruce Comstock on nationals. So I have to root for him. Johnny is one of our teammates, so he's on the list. Nick, he's a friendly sometimes, but I have to say he's a nemesis. So, but Nick's got a great chance. The Donner, the brothers, they're fantastic pilots. Todd Isley, some of the Indian oil pilots. I feel like it could be up for grab. I think a rookie could even jump up there. So there's been some rookies flying really well. So hopefully we get in lots of flights. The weather changes like crazy up there, but hopefully we get a quality event, and we'll see how it shakes out.
So we're going to move on now to our fan questions. We've got a few that we ask each of our guests every week. We have a couple that were sent in today as well. So our first one, we ask this one to everybody. It's kind of a tradition on the show. It comes from our other guest today, Blake Aldridge. He asks, what is your favorite Marvel movie?
Oh, so is that like a Batman deal?
Like Iron Man, Spider-Man, Avengers, stuff.
I don't know. I would probably have to say Iron Man. It's pretty good.
Not Tarzan. That doesn't count.
Okay.
Shout out to Dr. Bill Bussey on that answer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, Iron Man's pretty legit.
Do you have a favorite post-flight meal?
Post-flight meal. I will say it probably wasn't my favorite, but it's what held you over. Was in Japan, in Haga, which is west of Motegi towards Utsunomiya. Japan, we would, sorry to make this long-winded, but we would fly the mornings over Motegi, then go over to Haga for the afternoon flight. But the sunset was roughly at 5 p.m. So we would finish flying in Motegi. We would drive an hour back to Propane, drive an hour over to Haga, and then so it's roughly noon by the time you stop, and the briefing's at 1:30 or 2 p.m. for the afternoon flight. So there was a little grocery store there that we would pick up some sushi and whatnot. So I would say that's my favorite afternoon meal or post-morning flight meal.
So much like professional athletes, they'll get a song when they're walking up to the plate or, coming out onto the court. What would your walk-up song be if you had the opportunity to pick one at an event?
We've had a playlist for throughout the years. The funny thing is, growing up, my dad's, most people probably don't know this, but his was when I was crewing like little Sleep in the Back Seat in Battle Creek, it seems like, was Danger Zone from Top Gun soundtrack. I mean, it's pretty epic. And I think that's what's been lacking on him the last few years, that his truck hasn't been playing that on the way out to the launch site, right? So we're going to start that again this year. But personally, I think the one that's lasted the most is this is a tough one. Seven Nation Army, White Stripes. So,
if you could have lunch with any ballooning legend, past or present, who would it be and why?
Ooh. That's a pretty good one. I hate to be biased, and I have lunch all the time, but I'm gonna have to say my father. Because we all, we always have a new strategy. We always talk about something new, and I still have big shoes to fill to accomplish what he's done.
It's so cool that you have a ballooning family, like not just the ballooning family, but like your family actually flies. Like I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Lucas, my brother's actually he's on his comeback tour, I guess you would say, this year. So we're gonna have to find big launch sites in Scottsbluff because we've got a big group now, which will be a little challenging.
So not to speak for him too much, what do you think his expectations are for nationals after being away for so long at that high level?
He always just shrugs his shoulders, says he doesn't care, but I think I'm getting him back into the competition mode. So, because all his competition was in the fat balloon days. So, we're working on it. We're working on his putts, if you want to call it that. Everybody can fly into a field. Everybody can drive to the green. It's those putts that matter.
What is the first event that you ever flew as a pilot?
It's either was Top Gun or I'm thinking it may have been Indianola in like 2008 or 9. I think it was Indianola, and I'll still stand here today and say that's fantastic practice. I'm not gonna get. I think I'm the only one going to nationals this year that's not flying Indianola. But it's going to be a fun event this year, and they're going to get a lot of good warm up. So I'm kind of jealous, but yeah, Indianola's it was great to build the foundation.
So our last question comes from our good buddy Steven Sitko. He asks, "What is your favorite task to be called and why?"
Favorite task. Let's see here. I probably have a couple, but I like the new, the way in Worlds in Austria, we did these new crats, if you want to call it, to where they had basically a hesitation waltz. And so I had 2 X's out there in 2 different fields. And each one was either it was live or not live or valid, invalid. Every 15 minutes, they flip-flopped. That was pretty challenging. And I would say second or tie for first is just the typical fly-on. The typical fly-on task is it's very challenging, especially if they add altitudes to it now, because you're in control of your destiny. So, you pick your fly on before, it's got to be, say, 2 kilometers or more from your current position. So you get to pick it yourself and fly to it yourself. So with that control, you should, ace it each time, which doesn't tend to happen, but I would say a fly on really filters out, kind of, the great pilots versus, just get everybody flying into next themselves. And trust me, I don't know how they did it back in the day with grids on a hard paper map. That was a really tough days to pick a fly on and grid it and all that stuff. So I envy having a moving map on a computer that I can click and make a waypoint and get the coordinates right away.
So that is all the time we have with Rhett today, guys. Rhett, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been great chatting with you, and we wish you the best of luck at the Nationals.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Have a great one.
Y'all too.
So up next, we have another fantastic competitor joining us on the show. It's going to be his first time competing for the ultimate trophy in U.S. competition ballooning. Please welcome our good friend all the way from Longview, Texas, back to the show, Blake Aldridge. All right.
Howdy. Good to see you.
What up,
me off
bro?
guard, dude. What's up?
It's great to have you back on.
It's good to be back, dude. I was just waiting for the call, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you on.
So let's do this a little different than our previous episode. So everyone knows about Blake. Everyone knows he's Dr. Busty's, best buddy, whatever you want to call it. So what's new since your last episode? What have you been doing this summer? How you been flying? Good, poor, indifferent? What have you been doing?
Goodness. I'm trying to think. So our last episode was probably right when school was getting out. So flew Longview, got second in Young Guns, barely lost to Joe Seymour. He's really good. 3 points though. 3 points. That's nothing, But it was really fun. And then we went to Battle Creek and met y'all there. And I got fourth, so that was pretty good. I got pretty lucky on some things, but it was super fun. We flew every flight, and I absolutely loved it. So I hope I can go back next year and, every other year. And then 2 weeks ago, we went to Canton, Texas, and we flew one flight, and I think I got fourth there. We flew like 3 tasks. And then, my balloon's been getting annual, so I haven't gotten to fly, but, we're leaving for the Indianola and Nationals trips. That'll be like over 2 weeks long, next week. And so I've been so excited for that all year. And so that's the summer. Pretty tame, but I'm having a blast flying.
Awesome. So you've been improving a ton over the last year or so as a competition pilot. And what have you done to improve your skills?
So I like to think of it as a process. It's not like it just happened overnight. We didn't get to fly in 2020, and I really thought that would have been my year to do what I'm doing now, at least getting better, because, beginning of 2019, when I did my first, full summer of flying, I didn't do very good. I think I got like 60th at Indianola. I did terrible. And I did bad at everything. I did get second to Young Guns, but we did the one flight there. But I kind of started doing my own thing, kind of separating myself, like not following anyone. And I allowed myself to make mistakes. It's not fun to mess up and make mistakes, but that's what I did. And I was like, okay, well, what if I go here to launch and then I'm way off from everybody else and I mess up and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that again. Because that's the best way to learn, to do it yourself. And I think the best practice was 2019 Indianola. And we flew, I don't know how many tasks was it, like 30 something tasks. And, the beginning of it, I remember the first day I launched, I think I was the 6th last person to launch, and I missed, and there were 5 targets, and I think I missed 3 or 4 of them. And I was like, man, I'm not going to do that again. So I learned then, to get up early, and that's my flying style now. In Longview, I was always the first one up. I remember, this year in Young Guns, I was first one up, and I looked down and I saw all the balloon vehicles still on the road and just looking at me. I'm just like, what? Am I doing something wrong, man? But that's just how I fly, and it's been working out for me. And throughout Indianola in 2019, I ended up finishing first on my first ever task, getting first, and I did good there. So I felt myself improving, and then I was like, 2020 is going to be my year. I'm going to get better and better, and I'm going to start doing good. And so we did a little tour. We went on the road and flew in a few places, but that was really nothing. So I like to think this year is what I would have done last year, but nowhere near where I want to be, but getting a lot better than I was.
See,
So,
I was
go ahead.
I was really impressed in Battle Creek with just your flight planning and your preparation. And you ask people like me that have been to Battle Creek and like Jenny and Cam about, what do you think of the area and this and that, and just how you could adapt to a new flying area, which I think will help you come, Scottsbluff, because you are somewhat familiar with it, but it is all a whole new animal when you're flying.
Oh yeah. Scottsbluff, fortunately, I got to fly as navigator for Dr. Bussey in every single flight, through all the fast flights, the long flights, the super complicated ones. I got to, have a lot of experience. And so I'm somewhat familiar, but like you said, it's a lot different when you're flying, but I have a little bit of an advantage as a rookie. I like to think, cause I kind of did that, but with Battle Creek, I've heard a lot about it, good and bad, kind of it's tough flying, it's good flying. So I just kind of wanted to ask as many people as I could that have been there for advice and stuff. And I do that for every event. I mean, I've been to Indianola for 2 years now because we went in 2020, visited and flew a bit. And I was texting Cameron, I think 2 days ago, asking, I'm like, hey man, what would you do? And asking for advice still, because that's, always improve. And I kind of like to know as much as I can before going into the event.
So, this is your first time flying nationals. What made you decide to really just make that jump and finally fly the event?
Honestly, it's a matter of just improving, because, I could wait. I could be like, I can wait 3 or 4 years and just say I'm not ready and just not do it. But to me, those are just excuses. And I'd rather start flying nationals as soon as I can. Obviously, if I'm ready, which I feel like I am, and to just start getting the experience. Because, even though I've done all these competitions, that's a whole different thing that I've never flown before. But I'm a firm believer in just kind of throwing myself into it and just learning as I go and making mistakes along the way. Because like going back to 2019, I did as many events as I could. I think I did 8 or 9 events, even small ones, big ones, and just get experience in learning. And so I feel, and I, obviously made a lot of mistakes, didn't do good, and now I've gotten better. And I feel like the same thing can kind of apply to the nationals. So yeah.
So, as you mentioned, you've been doing a lot of practicing. Outside of events, what kind of work have you been doing? I know you've been making some YouTube videos, which I'm sure you've learned from a little bit. Talk about that. And, again, you've been working on some of the sensor stuff. What you been doing?
Yeah, so when I go to events, and I know yes, outside events, but the sensor I feel like is the biggest thing, because this is my first year using Aussie and the sensor and everything. And I learned from Joe Zavada that you could use the sensor for a GPS on Aussie, which I had never used Aussie or anything. So that's been a real process learning it this summer. But outside of events, I do make the YouTube videos, and I like to look back at my flights. And I'd say, the weather really in Longview has not been good ever since Great Texas Balloon Race. It's always raining or windy. I mean, this is like the worst summer I've ever seen. But also, I think we're also out on the good weekends. But I mean, that's fine. I mean, but I think the best experiences for competition is obviously flying competition. It's more fun too. And but I'd say the biggest thing is just preparing for events is the most important thing. Reading the ops manual at least 2 or 3 times and knowing it and knowing the rules, because the rules are important, as we learned in Battle Creek with a few things. And knowing, what's right and wrong and how you can kind of use the rules. And I think just preparation and just kind of knowing your flying area ahead of time and kind of what to expect is my strong suit.
What kind of expectations did you have going into the year as far as, Great Texas and Battle Creek? And I assume you exceeded both expectations. I know you'd have loved to win, Young Guns, but second's still pretty good, even if you lost by 3 points.
Yeah. Honestly, and I've learned a lot. Still, my expectations have changed. I didn't really have any for myself going into. I kind of took it as one event at a time, but then we did Great Texas, and I really did want to win that, and I didn't, and I was really upset with myself, even like before the award ceremony, because we did all the calculations and stuff. And like, you lost by 2 points. I was like, no, and I was kind of sitting there in the parking lot, and I was like, you know what? This is terrible for me, but I still had a really fun time. And then I was standing up there on the podium, and everyone was really happy for me. And then I realized something. I was like, I still did good. I didn't win, but I still did good, and I had fun doing it. And I learned a lot. And so I went into Battle Creek with a different mindset of, I just want to have fun, most importantly, and be safe and have fun. And just learn. And, I have a lot of time in ballooning. I don't even know what the average age is. I think it's like in the late 40s or 50s, and I'm 20. And I'm flying with all these guys right now, and I'm so lucky. So, I just went to the mindset of just having fun and just learning as much as I could. And trying to just be the best that I can be and improve. And it worked out for me. Same thing in Canton. And the thing about Battle Creek is learning. I flew 3 different types of tasks I'd never flown before. I think it was a crat, like a shortest distance, and an elbow. I think it was. Was it an elbow? Yeah. And And, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing really, but I learned there, and now I'm kind of ready for those tasks at nationals, and I had a blast doing it. And that's what matters most. And it worked out for me. And so that I'm just going to, and going to Indianola and nationals, those, we're going to fly so much morning and afternoon. Who knows how many tasks we're going to fly. So that's going to be such a good just experience gainer and learning opportunity. And that's what I'm excited for right there. And I know it'll be a blast flying.
So then what are your expectations for your first nationals? Do you set them? Do you just go in open-minded saying, hey, I could finish first, I could finish 48th, I could finish, middle of the pack? What are you thinking?
Well, I don't want to go into it being like, oh, if I get last place, it's okay. It's not, I don't want to sound like that. I obviously want to win and do really good, but my goal with myself is always just try and get as close as I can to the target and see where that leads me. I don't have really a placement. I mean, I don't want to say anything, a solid number, but I just always have a personal goal for myself to just always get in the scoring area and, see the target and be able to throw my baggies, because the worst feeling is going back to the Balloonmeister with some of your baggies and just, here you go, So I don't really have a placement personal goal necessarily, but I kind of have a, you know what I'm saying, like a little just personal task.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, that's a good mentality to take. I think you've done the right steps this summer, and I think you need to take this last, couple flights right before nationals and hone in your communication with the guys you're going to work with and get your game plan together. Because I think, Battle Creek, you're on your game, but that's just one event. Anything can change in any given week. I mean, Scotts Bluff, you could have shifting winds left and right and this and that. So, I think you had all the tools to be successful and, have one of the better finishes out of a rookie in a while. You just got to get that little bit tuned up at the end.
I appreciate it. I feel like the biggest thing in competition ballooning is consistency. You can win a big event or, place top 5 or 10, but if the rest of the summer you don't do good, that in my mind, for me, if that happened to me, it didn't really, that top finish didn't really mean anything. And I feel like it's consistency. And now, this summer I've been doing pretty good. I think second, fourth, and fourth, that's pretty good. I hope I can keep that going. But that's just that's how I see it, at least.
So what is your prediction of who's gonna win nationals this year?
Oh my gosh, dude. I don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of people that I want to win. I mean, there's not like one person that I'm like, oh yeah, I really hope this person. There's not one person I'm like, I hope they don't win. I like everyone.
Who are you rooting for?
Oh gosh, I gotta say honestly, Joe Zavada. He's like the coolest dude, and he was our kind of team leader because I crewed for Allen at Team Nationals, and I was pretty involved there. And he's such a cool dude, and I actually learned a lot from. I forgot to mention that earlier, but I learned a lot there. And I know he was close, and I can't remember if it was 2017 or 18. I remember he did really good, and he almost won it. But I think he's, of the guys who haven't won it, I think he's probably one of the most deserving. But at the same time, I'd be happy for anyone if they won it. And I'm not going to say I have a personal favorite, but if I have to say, I think one person should have won it, probably Joe.
Well, I think this year it's just so wide open because, again, not flying last year, it's a game changer. You have a new event director, so you don't know what you're going to really get out of him. I mean, Paul's going to be a great event director for nationals, I don't doubt. But compared to what it's been, you guys are so used to these Maury-driven tasks, especially a lot of those guys that fly nationals after nationals. Again, I feel like Maury and Burke call very similar tasks, and those have been the last 10 years or so national directors. Mm-hmm. Now you put in the sensors, that's a game changer. People's rust, that's a game changer. So, I mean, you may see guys sneak up that have flown a lot this year, and you may see some guys that really haven't got a whole lot of experience with the sensors go to the bottom or middle of the pack that you won't expect. So I think it might be kind of a wild card year.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because my whole life, because I really, I've always been around ballooning, but with serious competition ballooning at the national level, I got back into it when it came to, or I got into it really when it came to Longview in 2012. And I really didn't start paying attention until Shreveport. So the only people, balloon masters I've ever known for nationals were Jim Burke and Maury Sullivan. And so I don't know what to, and I've never seen a Paul task before, so I don't know what to expect, but, I'm excited for that. But, I didn't really think about that, how different it could be. So could be a lot of logger tasks, could be a lot of markers. I have no clue. So we'll just have to see.
So, the last thing we're going to do before we get into our fan question that we got for you today, we're going to go into our prediction for who's going to win this year's Nationals. Brad, why don't you start?
Well, the event director keeps calling me out because I keep cursing him, okay? He keeps saying I picked him for Battle Creek. I think I picked him to do good in Longview. So I'm going to try and curse his brother this time. I'm going to pick Johnny Petrin, okay? And nobody can come after me for that pick. I may get a message from Paul on Facebook saying my brother did awful because of you. I don't know. But, I just wish for good weather, safe flying, and happy pilots. That's all I wish.
That guy's won too many. You should predict him.
McKenna, what about you?
I don't know who I would pick to win, but I'll say who I'm rooting for, which I'm probably rooting for you, Blake, and I'm also rooting for Joe as well. And then I'm also rooting for my friend Casey, too.
Way to pick like half the field. I mean, that's like a Dr. Bussy thing in our Longview
episode.
Man, I'm gonna tell you a story about A&Ls now. I'm gonna tell you a story about Bubba Cliver. I'm gonna tell you a story about, man, them Donners are tough, man.
I'm just rooting for all my friends to win.
And them Petrons, them tough. And then he says he's gonna give half his money to McKenna and finishes like 40th. Like, man, you gotta put your money where your mouth is, Dr. Bussy.
I just want my friends to do well.
I respect it.
Yeah, that's fair. So it's really hard to get bet against Rhett Heartsill right now. The guy is on fire. He's won the last two, and is there any stopping him? However, I'd really, really like to see Joe Zavada get it. He is so overdue for one. I really hope he wins it this year.
Yeah.
Who I think kind of comes in this event is kind of a dark horse, and he shouldn't be at all, is I think Nick is going to do really good once again at Nationals. Like, I think after the success he's had in Battle Creek to start the year, he's flying a lot more than he normally does this time. In the last couple of years, he's got the teams under his belt. He's got Longview. He's going to Indianola. I think he could kind of sneak up on us again and have a nice streak going. And hopefully I just didn't curse him because I mentioned his name or something like that. But I think he could be one to watch again.
The Hosmer curse.
No, it's Strut's curse. Mine's just bad weather, Brad.
Yeah, they're all great pilots. Nick, Rhett, Johnny. I mean, it's Joe. It's you really can't tell until the last day. Even going into the last day, you can't tell. It can change so fast. So I think it will be, like you said earlier, a toss up. It could be anyone's event. You might see some names at the top that aren't expected, at the bottom that aren't expected. I feel like you just won't know, with it being, people haven't flown Scotts Bluff in 2 years, and people that have never flown it are going, new Balloon Meister, the COVID break, Russ, the loggers. I mean, there's so many factors going into it that I really can't tell who was going to do well or not,
Yeah, it's weird hearing people talk about the break from COVID because I've been flying like so much. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't fly my balloon. I have had my balloon for a full year now. I think it has 24 hours on it. Like it's nothing, and I got I have school and everything. I didn't fly for almost 5 months when I was in school and stuff, and I really only started flying back. Let's see, I flew in November or December, and I didn't fly at all until we started practicing for Longview and stuff. So that's just me, and I'm pretty young and I don't have work and so many things to worry about. So I can't even imagine some other people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's crazy because the ride company that I work for, like they were flying so much, like right after COVID started, and we actually increased 50% in sales. Like,
oh my goodness,
it's really crazy.
I guess just the Northwest area was less affected.
I think people were bored during COVID, and everyone wanted to go for a balloon flight.
Let's go for balloon ride.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up with, we got one fan question for you because, we've had you on before. You've answered the ones we ask everybody. So our fan question today comes from our good buddy, Steve Sitko. He asked the same thing to Rhett. What is your favorite task that gets called?
My favorite task?
Yes.
Gordon Bennett. I love Gordon Bennett's. I think I've told y'all that before. If I was in Battle Creek, I just love them, just the versatility and just, hey, throw it on this road or this. Well, I remember in Battle Creek, it was that really long little, I think it was a driveway, and it was, that was the smallest square man I've ever seen. Or it could be a triangle, a square, other side of this little lake. It could be anything, and it's cool when you get the little task or the diagram. You're like, okay, let's see what it looks like today. Oh, that's kind of weird. I've never seen that before. I need to throw it here. So I think probably those. I think Hare and Hounds are fun. I don't think they're very competitive, but I think they're fun at smaller events and kind of bring everyone together, and you just have a good time with those. But probably Gordon Bennett.
I don't think the boys in New Jersey are saying a Hare and Hound's very fun right now. I heard that Hare still might be flying.
So that is going to do it for us this week on BurnerCast. Blake, thank you again for coming on the show. We had a great time with both you and Rhett today. We are not going to announce our guest for next week just quite yet. Keep a lookout on our Facebook. Tomorrow we will be announcing that guest and who we will have joining us. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on BurnerCast.